You know that weird feeling you get when you suddenly remember something from way back in your past? A memory you haven't touched in years, suddenly resurfacing? It's usually triggered by something. You'll hear an old song or rewatch a movie you haven't seen in a decade, and suddenly you feel like a kid again. You can see it all so vividly in your mind's eye. Those goofy home movies you filmed with your siblings back in the day, the time you went to a classmate's birthday party at the arcade, the comforting memory of your childhood home. It's a sudden moment of warmth and sweetness, but also heartache too, because you know those times are gone and they are never coming back. A feeling not unlike homesickness, bittersweet, wonderful and painful all at once, a phenomenon we call nostalgia, which is often defined as the yearning sensation for things of the past. And it is easy to think of the past this way, with that selective fondness, an idealized version of your memories. But if you can pull away those rose-tinted lenses even for a moment, you might just find that those experiences weren't all warmth and happiness. Have you ever tried to watch your old home movies and found that they were just not what you remember at all, faded and hard to hear and almost eerie in their old, damaged state? Or remember at your classmate's 10th birthday party when they brought out the animatronic band to play for everyone, how you couldn't help feeling like you needed to stay far, far away from those things? Or what about the unfinished basement of your parents' house, where you swear you sometimes saw the shadows moving all by themselves? Easy to filter that stuff out. Of course you don't want to think back to the uncomfortable stuff. Of course you'd rather dwell on the parts of those memories that you love. But those shadows are still there, lurking within the neglected corners of your mind. And people have started to pay attention to them. A lot of attention. So much that they've become the focal point of what is today one of the most popular and innovative genres of horror on the internet: nostalgia horror. Are you enjoying the video so far? I hope so. These horror videos are some of our favorites to make. We've actually been doing it for quite a while. In fact, there are some really unique ones we've made that aren't actually available here on YouTube. Like this one about the weird world of Junji Ito and how he finds the inspiration for his bizarre brand of art, which is some of the most disturbing of all time. It's available for you to watch right now, ad-free, over on our streaming platform Nebula, as well as a ton of other original content that will never be here on YouTube. In fact, that Junji Ito video is actually part of an entire series we have over there called Worldsmiths, which is some of our best work by far. Visit go.nebula.tv/talefoundry to sign up for just $2.50 a month. If you've spent any time on the weird side of YouTube in the last couple of years, you've probably encountered the phrase analog horror at some point. If not, here's a crash course. Analog horror is a subgenre of the nostalgia horror umbrella dealing with the visual aesthetic of outdated analog technology. This includes things like VCRs and VHS tapes, cable TV commercials, old-fashioned public service announcements, all that stuff, which is all already sort of creepy unto itself. But analog horror works by corrupting the simple, predictable visuals of these mediums, and therefore the facts and information they're designed to deliver. It's a great visual embodiment of the concept of lost, damaged, or corrupted memories. Analog horror is pretty well established at this point, and full of tropes that have become memes in and of themselves, though that doesn't make them any less unnerving. All of these tropes carry with them an inherent sense of the uncanny, a type of horror that comes close to, but is markedly distinct from, a lot of others. For instance, one of the most common things you'll see in analog horror are single-frame flashes of disturbing visuals, most often distorted faces, cryptic texts, otherworldly environments. Though they're certainly startling, these aren't quite your run-of-the-mill jump scares. There's no tense build-up to a music sting, but rather a blink-and-you-miss-it moment of uncertainty that what you saw was real, and if it is, why was it there? Many series in this genre also feature elements of cosmic and biblical horror, playing with ideas of what's really out there watching us. Is it God or something else? This adds a layer of existential dread to what is already a dissonant experience, creates a sense of gravity that feels like it shouldn't be possible through such a simple medium. But perhaps the most prominent of all analog horror tropes are the concepts of brainwashing and doppelgangers. There's a variety of analog horror stories which feature monsters that take the shape of humans, whether it be strangers, your friends, even family, even you yourself. It's common to find this kind of media trying to gaslight you about the nature of your reality, brainwash you into questioning your existence until you begin to wonder who, if anyone, is really safe to trust. There are already countless analog horror projects available to watch for free on YouTube, with more being uploaded every single day. But there are a few I want to point out in particular. One of the first examples of analog horror ever created was a series called Local 58, a collection of found footage videos taken from a fictional public access TV channel as it is repeatedly hijacked, apparently trying harder and harder to lure viewers into an almost hypnotic entrancement with the moon, or whatever strange entity has woken up inside of it. There's also a series called Gemini Home Entertainment, which is a library of educational VHS tapes published by the fictional Gemini Home Entertainment Company that tells the story of an extraterrestrial invasion. Both of these projects helped to popularize the genre, but there's another that really put analog horror on the map. The Mandela Catalog was created in 2021 by the then 18-year-old Alex Kister. The series is made up of found footage material that details the invasion of Mandela County, Wisconsin by supernatural beings known as alternates, who at first look and sound like people, but are definitely not. At first, it was just a single video with the title Overthrown, which Kister created as a filmmaking project. Since then, it's expanded into a multi-season epic with popular channels like Wendigoon and Nexpo and, I guess us at this point, analyzing it and breaking it down. I think it's safe to consider the Mandela Catalog the Exhibit A of the genre because it encapsulates all of the common tropes and establishes many of the genre conventions. The distorted faces, the biblical underpinning, the brainwashing, the uncanny doppelgangers swapping places with people. It also showcases one very important aspect of analog horror that was less intentional: its low-budget charm. Kister created early entries into the series on his iPhone using basic editing software and enlisting his friends and family for help. This simple, homemade element is part of what sets analog horror apart from its counterparts. Even big-budget theatrical releases like 2022's Skinamarink very intentionally give the impression of being filmed on home video. Heck, you can hardly see what's happening at all in that movie, as if someone put the camcorder down and forgot that it was filming. These series have blown up on YouTube in recent years, and I think that owes a lot to how familiar this imagery is. With their grainy VHS tape quality, dated music and effects, and focus on the pre-internet era, they all call back to what most people would think of as a simpler time. But I certainly wouldn't call the experience nostalgic. You know what I would call nostalgic though? The cartoon characters you grew up with, the icons of your youth. Your friends on the other side of the television screen, or in the big huggable suits at theme parks, or in your favorite video games. Time changes all things, but your memories with these fictional characters have a way of coming back vivid as ever whenever you run across these old pals of yours. And of course, in the vein of all good nostalgia horror, it makes them absolutely ripe for exploitation. Authors, artists, and especially game designers have taken the idea of friendly fictional characters and just made it really weird, creepy, in some cases legitimately terrifying. You may have heard of this before, but what I'm talking about here is a subgenre called Mascot Horror. One of the earliest examples of Mascot Horror is also maybe one of the oldest examples of this entire nostalgia horror umbrella too. It's a classic creepypasta-style story called Candle Cove, which takes the form of a bunch of adults on a forum reminiscing about a puppet show that they all used to watch on public access TV as kids. I won't spoil the ending, but if you know, you know. But these days, that's kind of an outlier. The time of Sonic the Hedgehog with bloody eyes, or Squidward suicide, or Ben drowned is far past us. Mascot Horror has since developed the unique distinction of being a subgenre primarily explored through the medium of video games. Almost a decade into this trend, year after year, indie developers seem to be pumping more and more of these things out all the time. BENDY and the Ink Machine was a classic. Poppy Playtime is a more recent addition that made a massive splash. Garden of Banban takes Poppy's success and iterates to really bizarre and fascinating effect. My Friendly Neighborhood is an addition that came out just a few months ago, whose influence we're watching grow in real time. Regardless of their popularity or ingenuity or even quality, the formula has remained much the same over the years. You typically play as a character who's found their way into a kid's entertainment space after hours, an animation studio, a toy factory, a kindergarten, a backstage area, and who inevitably finds themselves hunted down by the warped, corrupted mascots of the brand. Of course, there's no way I can talk about all of this and not mention the genre's biggest icon, the star player of Mascot Horror, Mascot Horror's very own mascot, Five Nights at Freddy's. You're here watching this YouTube video about nostalgia horror, so I'm going to assume you're at least a little familiar, even if just by osmosis. It's the same basic formula as the others. You're a security guard working the graveyard shift at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and the animatronic performers are on the prowl. All you have to do is survive the night. Simple, sweet, irresistibly familiar. That's how it started anyway. Since the game's first release in 2014, the series has spiraled into a massive media franchise, including toys, books, even a major motion film adaptation. After nearly a decade, the lore of the series has gotten so convoluted that there are YouTube channels who earned their fame just by breaking it down and speculating endlessly about it. There seems to be something irresistibly attractive and approachable about this particular genre of nostalgia horror. Maybe it's the concrete quality of discreet, colorful, personable characters gone evil, or maybe it's something else, something deeper, a sense of betrayal, the deep cut into the familiar. This idea that the figures who have been with you your entire life might not actually be who you thought they were. There's also kind of a strange, creepy quality to the spaces these characters inhabit, right? All these bright, colorful, ostensibly fun locations made dark, empty, ominous, forlorn. It feels weird somehow. The place is the same, you recognize it, but almost unspeakably, it's completely different at the same time. Almost like those analog horror doppelgangers, but, you know, a place? You've probably felt this before. I think most people have. Do you remember the eerie feeling you get when you're at school at night, looking down the hallway as it stretched endlessly before you without the other kids to populate the space? Have you ever seen the inside of a dead mall or an empty hotel hallway? Something about seeing a space, usually populated with people going about their business, suddenly devoid of life, just feels wrong. Almost as if there's a primal fear associated with it. Something that screams, you shouldn't be here. That fear is the foundation of our third and final subgenre here, liminal horror. If you're already familiar with this term, it's probably because of the popularity of liminal spaces. Basically what I just described, all those empty transitional spaces that just feel so strange to observe. And weirder than that too. Spaces that literally cannot exist. Renders and photo manipulations of inscrutable architecture and impossible scale. Maybe the best example of this is the Backrooms, which we did a whole video about, which is essentially an alternate reality made of labyrinthine liminal architecture. But this goes well beyond spaces. This transitional state concept can apply to so much. There's a project a few different creators are collaborating on right now called Liminal Land, which is basically just a tour through all possible definitions of what you could mean by the word. Human faces that have been warped to the point of unrecognizability, architecture that shouldn't quite be possible, moments of bizarre motion that capture impossible in-between states. It's a unique body of work in that the bulk of its story is told through its fully functional website, visitliminalland.net. Through its maze of web pages and AI-generated images, it details the attractions and happenings of the long-defunct theme park, which supposedly closed in 1989 after a string of missing persons cases. definitely worth a visit if you're interested in exploring this park yourself. Of course, liminality is not necessarily tied to nostalgia. It's just about change, transition. So you might wonder if it really fits the category of nostalgia horror, but I think it does, and in an interesting way. Another term people often use for the prevailing mood of liminal horror is the word elegiac, as of an elegy, a poem or song lamenting the dead. The sense here is not just one of eerie difference, but of loss. The character and life people once gave to these spaces have fled, and with them the soul. They have become the coffins of your memories. And this is what nostalgia horror does. I don't think its appeal is merely aesthetic. I don't think it comes down to damaged video footage or colorful but evil characters or weirdly empty locations. Nostalgia is a universal experience. It affects anybody old enough to miss being young, anyone who feels like the good times are in the past, anyone who looks back at their own experiences through rose-tinted lenses. All of this media, in one way or another, challenges that. It says, no, maybe your home movies really are just a smidge creepy, and the version of your memory they've captured isn't quite the one in your head. Maybe under that fuzzy character's huggable suit, there's a scary mechanical exoskeleton, or worse, a person you don't know at all. Maybe the only reason this place ever felt alive was because you lived in it. Nostalgia is a lovely, precious experience, but nostalgia horror is a vivid reminder to pay attention to the shadows in your memory as well, because they're certainly paying attention to you. These horror videos are some of our favorites to make. We've actually been doing it for quite a while. In fact, there are some really unique ones we've made that aren't actually here on YouTube, like this one about the weird world of Junji Ito and how he finds the inspiration for some of the most disturbing art of all time. It was a really fun, really unique video for us, definitely one of the better videos we've ever made. It's available for you to watch right now, ad-free, over on our streaming platform, Nebula. Actually, we've got a bunch of stuff over there that won't ever be here on YouTube. Full videos, like this one about a fantasy world that basically has its own gigantic geographic genitalia, or this one about the morphology of angels and why artists are always giving them wings, even though they might not have had them in the source material. You can find every single video we make there a week earlier than they release on YouTube, plus all of these exclusive videos we only upload to Nebula. We have an entire original series over there called Worldsmiths that we are just so proud of. Those videos are so good. And we're not the only ones who have been posting there. The same is true for so many other amazing creators, like our friend Frankie from the channel A Bit Frank, or Tim from Hello Future Me. YouTube is kind of a crazy place to make content. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy to have this platform, but you have to be so careful about your topic choices, your packaging, what you include in your videos. You just start to feel like you're walking on eggshells. Nebula just doesn't have any of those concerns. It's an entirely different environment, devoid of all the weird YouTube cynicism. That's because, unlike YouTube and so many other platforms, this one is not run by advertisers. It was built by creators for creators. Every time you watch a video there, a creator you love is getting paid, and far more than they would ever get paid on YouTube. And on top of that, Nebula even helps its creators to fund incredible original content. You know, like our series, Worldsmiths. And here's the really fun part. You can get Nebula for cheaper than almost any other streaming platform on the internet. Like $2.50 per month. That cheap. We want you to have access to our Nebula content, so we've managed to get Foundry fans who sign up using our link a whole 40% off the usual rate. All you have to do is click the link in the description or visit go.nebula.tv/TaleFoundry and sign up for 1 year. That's it. And with our discount, that first year is only going to be $30, which again comes out to just $2.50 per month. Frankly, I'm not quite sure how they can afford to do this for us, but I'm definitely not complaining. Seriously, take advantage of this offer while it's still going. I don't think any better one exists in the world of streaming. Anyway, that's all for this one. Thanks for watching and keep making stuff up. I'll see you next week. Bye!